Rebecca Middleton was not just any typical teenager. She embodied the spirit of youth in its fullest bloom. Growing up in Belleville, Ontario, a modest town surrounded by nature's quiet beauty, Rebecca's personality shone brightly against the backdrop of lakes, forests, and small-town charm. From a young age, she displayed an adventurous streak that often set her apart from her peers. Whether it was exploring hidden trails near her home or taking the lead during family camping trips, Rebecca was the kind of girl who sought excitement and discovery wherever she went. Her love for outdoor activities was deeply ingrained and reflected a connection to the natural world that went beyond mere recreation. Water skiing wasn't just a sport she tried once in a while. It was a passion that filled her with a sense of freedom and joy. The thrill of skimming across a shimmering lake, the spray of water against her face, and the challenge of mastering balance and speed made her feel alive. Sailing, too, was a skill she embraced eagerly. Navigating the open waters, reading the winds, and working with the elements gave her a profound sense of control and peace. Camping trips, where she'd spend nights under the vast canopy of stars, allowed her to unplug from everyday life and reconnect with simpler, more grounding experiences. Rebecca's outgoing nature extended far beyond her hobbies. She was known among her classmates and community as someone who could light up a room with her laughter and warmth. Her social skills were sharpened by a natural intelligence and street smarts that made her savvy in navigating friendships and challenges alike. She had a quick wit and a generous heart, always willing to stand up for friends or strangers in need. This combination of charm and resilience made her beloved by many, but also self-reliant enough to handle life's unpredictabilities. Central to Rebecca's life was her enduring friendship with Jasmine Means. Their relationship was more than just childhood companionship. It was a pillar of support, trust, and shared dreams. They had grown up side by side, through elementary school, teenage crushes, family struggles, and all the awkward yet formative moments that knit young people together. For Rebecca, Jasmine was a confidant who understood her innermost thoughts and feelings, someone who would listen without judgment and offer honest advice. Their friendship represented a safe harbor amid the storms of adolescence. As Rebecca's 17th birthday approached, her family wanted to honor her growing independence and celebrate the transition from girlhood toward adulthood. They knew that Rebecca's adventurous spirit deserved a gift that matched her personality, something that would allow her to spread her wings and explore the world beyond the familiar confines of Belleville. After much thought, they chose to send her on a 6-week trip to Bermuda, an island known for its stunning beauty and vibrant culture. This was not only a present, but a carefully considered gesture to give Rebecca an experience that could enrich her life. The trip promised to be a transformative journey. Bermuda's crystal-clear waters, coral reefs, and lush landscapes offered a playground for Rebecca's love of water sports and nature. The island's unique blend of British and Caribbean culture would expose her to new perspectives, histories, and ways of life. Her family envisioned Rebecca sailing along the coast, making new friends, and returning home with broadened horizons and stories of adventure. They hoped the time away would build her confidence, inspire her dreams, and offer her a sense of independence and maturity that only travel can foster. More than anything, the trip symbolized a milestone, a celebration of Rebecca's individuality, courage, and the limitless potential that lay ahead of her. It was meant to be a summer filled with laughter, discovery, and personal growth, a vivid chapter in the story of a young woman ready to embrace the world. Her family's gift was an expression of love, hope, and belief in her bright future. Rebecca's journey to Bermuda was not one she embarked upon alone. Understanding the importance of companionship and safety, her family arranged for her best friend, Jasmine Means, to join her on this 6-week adventure. Jasmine wasn't just a casual travel buddy. She was Rebecca's closest confidant, someone who knew her well and could provide emotional support in unfamiliar surroundings. The decision to send them together reflected a thoughtful approach, ensuring Rebecca would have both fun and reassurance while far from home. Upon arrival, the girls were welcomed into the home of Jasmine's father, Rick, who lived on the island with his wife. Rick assumed the role of guardian and overseer during their stay, a responsibility he took seriously. His protective nature was apparent in the way he set boundaries and rules designed to safeguard Rebecca and Jasmine amid the new and potentially challenging environment. Though the island was beautiful and inviting, Rick was keenly aware that teenagers exploring away from their usual safety nets needed guidance to avoid trouble. Among his rules was a strict curfew, requiring the girls to be back by 1 a.m., a time Rick believed balanced, allowing them some independence with the need to keep them safe during the late hours. He also forbade them from riding mopeds or bicycles around the island, activities that might seem harmless but carried risks given the unfamiliar roads and traffic patterns in Bermuda. These restrictions, while occasionally frustrating for Rebecca and Jasmine, underscored the protective environment Rick sought to create. They served as a reminder that, despite the excitement of the trip, caution was necessary. Rick's involvement meant the girls had a stable adult presence nearby, someone who could offer guidance, intervene if needed, and provide a home base from which Rebecca and Jasmine could explore the island. This arrangement gave Rebecca's family peace of mind, knowing that even though she was far from Belleville, she was not truly alone. The combination of friendship and supervision set the stage for a summer filled with adventure but also grounded in safety and care. On the night of July 2nd, 1996, Rebecca and Jasmine decided to step out for an evening of fun and socializing, eager to soak up the vibrant nightlife of Bermuda. Their destination was the White Horse Tavern, a popular local pub known for its lively atmosphere and friendly crowd. It was a warm summer night, but the sky was heavy with thick clouds hinting at an impending storm. At the tavern, the girls quickly found themselves swept into the flow of the evening. They mingled with locals and other tourists, sharing stories, laughter, and enjoying the music that filled the cozy, dimly lit space. For Rebecca, this night was a chance to make new friends and experience a world vastly different from her quiet hometown in Ontario. Jasmine stayed close by, her protective presence a comfort, as they navigated conversations with strangers and tried new drinks. As the hours slipped away, the initial excitement gave way to a more chaotic, late-night party vibe. The crowd grew louder, the music pulsed stronger, and the tavern became increasingly crowded. Time seemed to blur, and the girls soon realized they had lost track of their curfew. It was well past 1 a.m., the time Rick had insisted they be home. Concern flickered between them, but the fun and the new connections held them in place, making it hard to leave. When they finally decided to head home, the night had turned against them. Heavy rain was pouring down in sheets, soaking the streets and making the usually scenic walk dangerous and unpleasant. The downpour was relentless, the sound of rain hammering against the pavement mingling with distant thunder. Umbrellas were scarce among the pubgoers, and Rebecca and Jasmine had none. Huddled under the scant shelter of a narrow awning near the tavern's entrance, the girls tried calling for a cab. Their fingers trembled not only from the chill of the rain, but from growing unease. The phone line was busy, no taxis were answering, and the few cabs that did pass by did not stop. Stranded and increasingly vulnerable, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They were far from home, without transportation, in bad weather, and well past the time they were supposed to be safe indoors. The streets, usually warm and inviting under the tropical moonlight, now seemed unfamiliar and forbidding in the storm. The rain soaked through their clothes, their hair plastered to their faces, and each minute spent waiting only deepened the sense of isolation. They were caught in a moment where carefree teenage fun collided with the stark realities of being alone in a foreign place after dark. Despite their efforts to stay calm and stick together, the night had taken a turn toward uncertainty, setting the stage for the tragic events that would soon unfold. Around 3 a.m., the rain had lessened to a steady drizzle, but the streets remained slick and dimly lit by the occasional flickering street lamp. Rebecca and Jasmine, still stranded and shivering from the cold, wet night, were beginning to lose hope of finding safe transport back to their accommodation. Their spirits were low, and the fear of being alone in an unfamiliar place late at night was creeping in. Suddenly, the sound of 2 motorcycles approaching broke the silence of the early morning. The engines hummed steadily as the bikes pulled up beside the girls. The riders, 2 local men, called out offering them a ride. The promise of warmth and shelter from the rain was tempting after hours of waiting in the cold. Jasmine, relieved and eager to get back safely, quickly accepted the offer from one of the riders, a man named Dean. She climbed onto his motorcycle without hesitation, trusting his friendly demeanor and hoping for a safe trip home. Rebecca, however, was approached by the other men, Kirk Mundy and Justice Smith. They were older and more imposing, but they spoke persuasively, offering her a ride as well. Rebecca hesitated, sensing a mix of uncertainty and caution in her gut. But the allure of escaping the rain and getting off the street overwhelmed her doubts. Despite her initial reluctance, she agreed to go with them, deciding it was safer than staying alone. With that choice, Rebecca separated from Jasmine. The two friends exchanged a brief, uneasy glance, a last moment of connection before the night took a tragic turn. Jasmine watched as Rebecca climbed onto the motorcycle with the two men, feeling a flicker of concern but powerless to stop her. As the motorcycles roared away into the night, Rebecca disappeared from Jasmine's sight forever. That moment marked the last time anyone would see Rebecca alive, a devastating reality that would soon unravel the nightmare of what happened next. When Rebecca didn't return home as expected, anxiety quickly set in for both Jasmine and Rick. Jasmine, still shaken by the events of the night and worried for her best friend's safety, tried to contact Rebecca repeatedly, but her calls went unanswered. The hours ticked by, and the fear that something terrible had happened grew heavier. Rick, Jasmine's father and the girl's guardian during their stay in Bermuda, became deeply concerned. He immediately joined Jasmine in searching the neighborhood and calling friends and local contacts, hoping to find any trace of Rebecca. Their desperation mounted as the early morning hours gave way to daylight, but there was still no sign of Rebecca. When they decided to go to the police station to report Rebecca missing, they encountered a frustrating and heartbreaking barrier. The Bermuda police, bound by procedural rules and policies, refused to take an official missing person report at that time. They told Rick and Jasmine that since Rebecca had only been missing for a few hours, it was too soon to open an investigation. The officers assured them that sometimes young people stayed out late or went off the radar temporarily, and urged patience. This refusal to act immediately was a crushing blow. The precious early hours after Rebecca's disappearance, often the most critical in a missing person case, were lost. Without a formal report, no urgent search was launched, no witnesses canvassed, and no area secured for evidence collection. The delay meant that potential clues faded or were destroyed, and leads grew cold. For Rebecca's family and friends, this official inaction felt like a betrayal, compounding their grief with frustration and helplessness. Every minute that passed without police support deepened their anguish and uncertainty. They were left in limbo, struggling to hold on to hope while fighting against a system that seemed indifferent to their desperate plea for help. In the early hours of the morning following Rebecca's disappearance, a local DJ named Dana Rollins was driving along Ferry Reach Road when he spotted something alarming on the roadside. There, lying injured and barely conscious, was Rebecca. Dana immediately stopped and, along with his friends who soon gathered, rushed to her aid. They did their best to comfort her, calling for emergency medical help and trying to keep her stable, but it quickly became clear that Rebecca's injuries were devastatingly severe. Despite their efforts and the prompt arrival of paramedics, Rebecca tragically passed away before she could be saved. News of the discovery sent shockwaves through the close-knit Bermuda community. The island, typically known for its serene beauty and peaceful lifestyle, was suddenly rocked by the horrific news of violence against a young visitor. What had started as an exciting and hopeful summer adventure turned into an unimaginable tragedy. For Rebecca's family back in Canada, the joyful birthday gift of a memorable trip had turned into a heart-wrenching nightmare. The grief was compounded by the painful knowledge that help had been delayed and justice would now become their only hope in the face of such loss. After Rebecca's body was found, the Bermuda police focused their efforts on identifying the suspects who had been seen with her on the night she disappeared. Through eyewitness testimony, it was established that two men named Kirk Mundy and Justice Smith had been in the company of Rebecca. One key source was Dean, the man who had been riding with Jasmine on a motorcycle that same night. Dean provided a detailed account of the events and the identities of the men who had taken Rebecca away from Jasmine. His statements helped the police narrow down their suspects to Kirk and Justice. In addition to Dean's testimony, another eyewitness reported a chilling detail. Two men with visible blood stains on their clothing were seen near the location where Rebecca's body was eventually discovered on Ferry Reach Road. The witness's description of these bloodied men closely matched the physical appearance and clothing of Kirk Mundy and Justice Smith, linking them more directly to the crime scene. Despite these critical pieces of evidence pointing towards Kirk and Justice, the investigation did not proceed smoothly. The police encountered multiple challenges that hindered their progress. There were delays in gathering further evidence, and some community members were reluctant to cooperate fully, which complicated the collection of crucial information. Additionally, questions arose about the thoroughness of the police work and whether enough resources and urgency were being applied to the case. These difficulties created significant obstacles, making it harder to build a strong case against the suspects and prolonging the family's desperate wait for justice. When Rebecca Middleton's body was discovered on Ferry Reach Road, the scene was one of horrifying brutality. The young Canadian tourist, who had come to Bermuda for a summer adventure, was found with over 30 wounds inflicted upon her, many deep and violent in nature. The extent of the injuries painted a grim picture of the violence she had endured in her final hours. Forensic examination revealed not only physical trauma but also confirmed that Rebecca had been sexually assaulted, an aggravating and tragic component that heightened the urgency and gravity of the investigation. The forensic team that examined Rebecca's body documented an alarming number of injuries, stab wounds, blunt force trauma, and defensive wounds indicating that she had struggled fiercely against her attackers. The over 30 wounds suggested a level of rage and cruelty that shocked both the investigators and the community. Each injury told a piece of the story, a desperate fight for survival, the terrifying violence inflicted on a young woman far from home. Sexual assault evidence was found during the forensic examination, which underscored the premeditated and violent nature of the crime. DNA samples were collected from Rebecca's body and clothing, which forensic experts hoped would provide the critical scientific link to the perpetrators. At the time of the investigation, DNA forensic technology was advancing but still limited compared to modern capabilities. Nonetheless, the evidence gathered, biological samples from the victim, represented one of the strongest tools the police had to identify and convict the attackers. Matching DNA profiles from the crime scene to suspects could have provided irrefutable proof of guilt. However, despite the clear importance of this evidence, the Bermuda police's handling of the forensic materials was fraught with errors and delays. Reports later revealed that key DNA samples were mishandled or lost, diminishing their potential to decisively link Kirk Mundy and Justice Smith to the crime. This mishandling seriously weakened the prosecution's case. Beyond the forensic challenges, the police investigation itself was marked by a series of critical missteps that would have lasting repercussions on the pursuit of justice. One of the most damaging errors was the initial refusal by the Bermuda police to promptly file a missing person report when Rebecca failed to return home. This delay allowed vital hours to pass without an organized search or formal investigation. Crucial evidence, potential witnesses, and forensic traces were lost or compromised in this window of inaction. Communication within the police department and with Rebecca's family was inconsistent and often opaque. The family, desperate for information and reassurances, were met with vague responses and little transparency. This breakdown in communication exacerbated the family's distress and fueled suspicions that the police were not fully committed to solving the case. Furthermore, the police appeared ill-prepared to manage a high-profile investigation involving foreign nationals. Bermuda's limited law enforcement resources, combined with the intense public and media scrutiny, stretched the capabilities of the department. Investigators lacked experience in handling complex forensic evidence, interviewing traumatized witnesses, and coordinating multi-agency efforts. These errors did not occur in isolation. The cumulative effect of investigative delays, forensic mismanagement, and poor communication severely undermined the ability of the authorities to build a strong, credible case against the suspects. Witnesses became less reliable as time passed, memories faded, and physical evidence deteriorated or was lost. The mishandling of the case drew sharp criticism from Rebecca's family, the Canadian government, and international observers. Questions were raised about Bermuda's law enforcement competence and the fairness of the criminal justice process on the island. Critics argued that these failings allowed the perpetrators to evade full accountability and justice for many years, prolonging the suffering of Rebecca's family and casting a shadow over the entire investigation. The handling of Rebecca Middleton's case triggered a broader conversation about policing standards and justice on the island. Community members and advocacy groups demanded reforms to ensure that future investigations would be conducted with greater professionalism and sensitivity. The case became emblematic of the difficulties small jurisdictions face when confronting violent crime and highlighted the need for improved forensic capabilities, better training, and clearer protocols for managing missing persons and violent crimes. The heartbreaking death of Rebecca Middleton shattered not only the hopes and dreams of her family, but also the trust that many placed in Bermuda's justice system. For her loved ones, the loss was unimaginable, a vibrant, joyful young woman taken far too soon in circumstances that were both brutal and senseless. The anguish they endured was compounded by a painful reality. The very system entrusted to protect and seek justice for Rebecca seemed unprepared, hesitant, and at times dismissive. Her family's grief was deepened by the delays and missteps in the investigation, as crucial hours slipped by without immediate police action or a coordinated search effort. The initial refusal by authorities to treat her disappearance with urgency conveyed an unsettling message, one that many felt reflected a systemic undervaluing of victims, especially young women and tourists in a small island community. Rebecca's case brought to light glaring deficiencies in how missing persons and sexual assault investigations were conducted in Bermuda. The police force's inability to promptly file a missing person report, the mishandling of forensic evidence, and the lack of clear communication with the victim's family all contributed to a sense of injustice that lingered long after the tragedy. These failings not only hindered the pursuit of those responsible, but also eroded public confidence in the local law enforcement's capacity to handle serious crimes. Within Bermuda, the case became a painful symbol of the urgent need for reform. Advocates and community members called for better training, resources, and protocols to ensure that future victims would receive timely, respectful, and effective attention. Rebecca's story underscored how critical it is for justice systems, especially in smaller jurisdictions, to prioritize victim care and thorough investigation to prevent similar tragedies. For Rebecca's family, the journey through grief was intertwined with a fight for accountability and change. Their courage in speaking out brought international attention to the case, pressuring authorities to improve their handling of sexual violence and missing persons. While no outcome could undo the devastating loss, their efforts contributed to an important dialogue on safeguarding the rights and dignity of victims. Rebecca Middleton's tragic death remains a somber chapter in Bermuda's history. It stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of systemic failures and the ongoing responsibility of law enforcement and society to protect the vulnerable, pursue justice without delay, and honor the memory of those whose lives have been cut short by violence.